In 1964, a 17-year-old named Randy Gardner decided to stay awake for as long as humanly possible. No drugs, no stimulants, just willpower. Day 2, he couldn't read. By day 4, he thought he was a famous football player. By day 11, he had been awake for 264 hours. When scientists measured his brain, they found something nobody expected. Parts of it had already started sleeping, while he was still standing up. And here's what that means for you. Because you don't need 11 days without sleep for your brain to start breaking down. You just need 24 hours. That's all it takes for your body to begin doing something that should terrify you. And the worst part isn't what happens to you, it's that you won't even notice it's happening. Let's start at hour 0. The moment you decide to stay awake past your normal bedtime, your brain doesn't panic. It adapts. It releases a chemical called adenosine, a pressure signal that builds up in your brain the longer you stay awake. Think of it like water filling a tank. The fuller the tank, the harder your brain pushes you towards sleep. At hour 1 past your bedtime, the tank is full. By hour 3, it's overflowing. Your brain is screaming at you to stop, but you override it. And that's where things get interesting. Around hour 17, something shifts. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, emotional control, and rational thought, starts losing power. Not metaphorically, literally losing electrical activity. Scientists at the University of Pennsylvania scanned the brains of sleep-deprived subjects and found that after 17 hours without sleep, the prefrontal cortex showed measurably reduced function. The same region that stops you from sending that text you'll regret. The same region that tells you to slow down when you're angry. The same region that separates your decisions from your impulses. It starts going offline. And here's the part nobody tells you. You feel fine. That's not an opinion. That's a documented biological response. When your prefrontal cortex loses function, it also loses the ability to accurately assess its own performance. The judge goes blind. The very part of your brain that would notice something is wrong is the first part to stop working. So you sit there, at hour 17, completely convinced you are functioning normally. You're not. By hour 20, your reaction time has doubled. Studies comparing sleep-deprived subjects to drunk drivers found something that should keep you up at night, if you weren't already. After 20 hours without sleep, your reaction time and decision-making are equivalent to a blood alcohol level of 0.08%. That's legally drunk in most countries. You cannot drive a car at that level. You cannot operate heavy machinery. You cannot make important decisions. But you can go to work. You can take an exam. You can have a conversation that changes a relationship forever. And you will feel completely qualified to do all of it. Now here's where it gets stranger. At hour 24, your brain does something that Randy Gardner's researchers first documented and couldn't quite believe. It starts sleeping anyway. Not all of it, not in a way you'd recognize, but specific regions of your brain begin entering microsleep. Bursts of sleep activity lasting between 1 and 30 seconds, while the rest of you remains awake and apparently functional. You won't feel it happen, you won't remember it happening. 1 second you're reading something, and the next second you're still reading it. But somewhere in between, a small piece of your brain went dark, rested, and came back. Without asking permission, without telling you. This is why people fall asleep at the wheel without knowing they were tired. This is why surgeons who work 30-hour shifts make significantly more errors in the final hours, not because they're slower, but because parts of their brain are periodically switching off mid-procedure. This is why the worst industrial accidents in history, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, the Challenger disaster, all involved critical decisions made by people who had been awake for more than 24 hours. Sleep deprivation doesn't feel like impairment, it feels like Tuesday, but your body knows. At hour 24, your immune system has already begun to struggle. Levels of cytokines, the proteins your immune system uses to fight infection and inflammation, start dropping after just 1 sleepless night. Your body is less equipped to fight a virus at hour 24 than it was at hour 0. Your pain threshold drops. Things that wouldn't have bothered you yesterday start to hurt. Your appetite increases dramatically as your body desperately searches for another energy source. And your emotional responses begin to amplify. A study published in the journal Current Biology found that after 24 hours without sleep, the amygdala, the part of your brain that processes emotional reactions, becomes 60% more reactive to negative stimuli. 60%. That means the small irritations, the minor frustrations, the passing anxieties of a normal day, they all hit harder. They feel more significant than they are. They feel more permanent than they are. And because your prefrontal cortex is already compromised, there's nothing to push back. The emotion comes in, and it stays. This is why everything feels worse at 3 a.m. This is why arguments started after midnight almost never end well. Your brain is not the same brain. Now here's the part that should change how you think about sleep entirely. Most people treat sleep like a luxury. Something you do when there's nothing more important to do, something you can cut short when life gets busy, something you can catch up on at the weekend. You can't. Sleep debt is not like financial debt. You cannot pay it back in one go. Researchers at the University of Colorado found that subjects who caught up on sleep after a week of deprivation still showed metabolic abnormalities 2 weeks later. The damage was not fully reversed. Some of it never is. Every hour of sleep you lose is not just a tired morning. It is a measurable reduction in your cognitive function, your emotional stability, your immune response, and your ability to form and retain memories. Your brain uses sleep to clean itself, literally. During sleep, your glymphatic system, a waste clearance network in your brain, becomes 10 times more active than when you're awake. Every night you sleep, your brain washes itself. Every night you don't, those proteins accumulate. Randy Gardner slept for 14 hours after his record attempt. He recovered. He was 17, and his brain was resilient enough to bounce back. But researchers who followed up with him decades later found he still struggled with insomnia as an adult. The body remembers what you put it through, even when you think you've moved on. So the next time you decide to push through, the next time you tell yourself you'll sleep when you're done, remember that the version of you making that decision, the one who feels fine, who feels sharp, who feels completely in control, is already running on a compromised brain. The judge went blind hours ago. You just didn't notice. Because that's exactly what happens when you haven't slept.